for other candidates, and I think I was trying to get a town hall with Andy Harris. That's how all this started. I asked our congressman for help. I explained to him that I was a small business owner. I explained that I had started my small business because I was a caregiver for my mother and a parent myself, and that working a 9-to-5 schedule really didn't work. It didn't give me the flexibility that I needed, and certainly employers did not understand that you might be getting calls in the middle of the day as a caregiver, and that you might need flexibility, but there aren't a lot of workers' protections there. So I was lucky in that when I was laid off about a month after my mother had several major strokes, I was able to start a business. And I went into consulting for myself, and I also have a couple of people that do work for me, and it's mostly stay-at-home moms, other caregivers, people who are educated, have the skills, and they just don't have the hours that you would normally expect out of a 40-hour work week. So when I separated from my son's dad, who is also he's a enlisted combat vet. Married to an enlisted combat vet for over a decade. When I separated from him, I lost my health insurance. And because of ACA protecting women, I was able to finally buy a policy for the first time in my life. Before that, I had tried to buy a policy and I was denied. Now, I was either denied altogether because I'd had a complicated pregnancy, I had postpartum depression and a C-section, or I was just priced out because women, before ACA had prohibited it, paid 30 to 80% more for the same policy that didn't even include maternity care. So I went to Harris and I said, I could lose my business. And my mother's in hospice. There's no way that I could go back to working for an employer, and why should I have to give up everything that I worked so hard to earn and to build simply because I'm a woman and you don't feel like protecting women? And I worked my way up his staff. I talked to the legislative aide, I talked to his constituent liaison, and I just kept getting the runaround. He said, oh, I think pre-existing conditions are covered. Or, I think you'd be in the high-risk pool. I said, being a woman doesn't make me high-risk. And I finally got the chance to meet Andy Harris. And this was after I spoke to this group in March of last year. And I asked him if he would vote against any ACA replacement legislation which allowed for gender rate hikes. And he told me he didn't think most people would mind if women paid a little more for health insurance.
Oh my God. Of course he would.
Well, I am a woman, and whether Andy knew it or not, I am also a person. And I'm mind enough to take his job over it. Yay. Because if he's not going to do his job, and he won't protect my job, and he doesn't care if he takes out a huge number of women-owned small businesses in the process, he doesn't deserve to keep his job. So I looked at my experience. I looked at his background. He's a doctor. He's a hypocrite. He was a state legislator. Okay, great. He still wasn't doing his job. And then I looked at my experience, and I have a decade of experience in federal program management, federal portfolio management of multi-billion-dollar Department of Defense portfolios. I've also worked at high levels of Veterans Affairs as a contractor, and I have a background in policy analysis. My education is in philosophy with a focus in ethics and logic, which seems very contradictory to Congress these days. And then my graduate work is in public policy with a specialization in federal acquisition. So what did I do with that? I built a business helping the Department of Defense streamline their programs so that we could deliver quality equipment to our troops faster, but also cheaper. So I'm the person they bring in when they want to know, what don't we have to do? What part of this very bureaucratic process can we skip? How can we do this more cheaply? How can we combine testing? How can we expedite this program? And I am the person that walks them through some of the most complicated processes that we have in the federal government. And I understand that process, I understand the tens of thousands of pages of regulations that go along with it, and I understand the federal acquisition regulation, which is dry enough to put most people to sleep. So the takeaway here is, I understand the nuances of the federal government and the operation of the federal government and the policies that are behind it and the regulations and the statute that is behind it. That is my area of expertise. I have a proven track record of saving Department of Defense millions of dollars. And that was just as a low-level contractor working at the Joint Program Executive Office for Chem Bio Defense right here at Aberdeen Proving Ground. If you put me in Congress, we can make DOD function on a smaller budget. That is important. We need wiser use of tax dollars, not more use of tax dollars. So, something I thought was interesting when I got into this, I went around and I talked to a lot of people, a lot of the people who were well known within the party. And I said I was thinking of running for District 1, and I said my background was in federal programs, and that's why District 1 made sense. And also, my concerns with Andy Harris they're very personal. My grief is with Andy Harris. It wasn't with the state level issues. And I was told time after time, District 1 is not winnable. District 1 is a lost cause. Why don't you go run for something you can win? Why don't you go do something else, something more productive? You're a good candidate. You should go run somewhere else. And I thought, I tell my son, he's 10, he's a public school student here in Harford County. I tell him, advocate for yourself and advocate for other people and use your voice and fight for what's right. And sometimes you need to do things even if it's hard, because it's the right thing to do and because people need hope that somebody will stand up and do the right thing. And I said, you know what? I don't care how hard it is to unseat Andy Harris. I'm going after him anyway, because I'm not going to have him be the only viable option on this ballot. And 6 months in, I attack him day in, day out. I'm not sure if any of you follow me on Twitter, but maybe you should. I have 25,000 followers on there. I have the biggest social media platform coming out of this entire district. And I use it to bring light, shed light on what Andy Harris does. And after about 6 months of that, other candidates started popping up. So now we have the most competitive primary in District 1 that we've had in how many years? Since 2008, 2010?
Go back.
More? I don't even know, right? But I was the first one who said it could be done. I was the first one who said no matter how hard it is, we have to do it. We have to show up. I was the first one to say, look, I don't care if the National Party has gerrymandered this district away and abandoned it. People deserve a voice, and I don't mean your donor class. I mean everyday working people who are the ones who are going to suffer from these policies. We deserve a voice. We will have a voice. And if I have to fight to protect everything that I worked for, then I'm going to fight to protect everything that everybody else worked for too. So on top of that, in addition to making this the most competitive primary we've had in we don't know how long, there are at least a half dozen people that are now running in down ballot races. And they've come to me privately and they've said, I'm running because you inspired me. Because you showed me that we stand up and we fight back, and everyday people deserve a voice. That there are different ways to run these campaigns, and if you just get out and talk to people, then they're not nearly as divided as you'd think. So to me, I got into it because it was personal. 3 days later, after I spoke to Andy Harris, and he said, you know, he didn't care if I lost my business because of his policies, was what I heard. My mother passed away. And she's a woman who dedicated her entire career to bringing health care to people. Health care. To ending racial disparities in health care. To addressing the critical nursing shortages that we have here in Maryland. And some of you who've been around for a while in Bel Air might know her. She had a bit of a reputation, I think, for being a feisty woman. I will never forget George's reaction when I told him that I grew up in the White House on the corner of Franklin and Ellendale. And he goes, "Oh, I know your mom." And, but what I realized about her, and I didn't realize it until I started to get an inkling of it when I was writing her obituary, and then when her students started pouring out at her viewing and saying, "Your mother changed my life because she gave me opportunities." The thing that I realized about her is that, as difficult as she could be sometimes, she was always fighting for the little guy. She was always fighting to make sure that people who otherwise wouldn't have opportunity had that opportunity available to them. She started the Health Systems Management Program at University of Baltimore. That program was the first accredited program at a public university in the state of Maryland, which was a cohort-style weekend, partially online program. She saw something where there was nothing. 2 minutes? Okay. And then she started the nursing program at Morgan State from scratch because she believed that people needed opportunities and she would do anything to help people. And then I looked at myself and I thought, you know what? A lot more like her than I had thought, than I had understood. The good sides of her, I hope. Maybe some of the bad. But, so what do I believe in? I believe in government that works for the people. It shouldn't matter how much money you have. It shouldn't matter whether you can donate. You should get as much time and energy out of your representative as anybody does. It shouldn't be about corporations. It should be about the people and what benefits the people. A representative's job is to be available, to be responsive, to show up, and to advocate on behalf of people. And I'm good at that. I'm good at that. I talk to everybody. If you message my campaign, you get a response. I believe that every family deserves the tools and the resources that they need to live in comfort, to be successful, to earn a living, and to retire in comfort. And that could be a lot of things. That could be protecting Medicare and Social Security, which, by the way, should be a livable wage. And it could be protecting Medicaid, but it's health care. It could be child care. It could be caregiver assistance. Redirecting some Medicare payments to assist caregivers. It could be education, student debt relief, a lot of things, but we need somebody who lives those problems, because the person who lives those problems is going to be much, much more motivated to fix those problems than somebody who simply studies those problems. I'm a middle-class single mom. I live those issues. I've been out here for a year doing this every day while working, while raising my child. And I think that it's time that we took this district back for all of us. Because it's time that we showed up, and it's time that government was actually of the people, for the people, by the people.